What if there was a podcast where one NFL legend talked about football? What about two NFL legends, huh? What about three? This is Wideout's World, where the gridiron comes alive. NFL legends Fred Barnett, Irving Fryer, and Michael Timpson. Three NFL legends, breaking down the game from the ultimate insider perspective. Game recaps, upcoming previews, and exclusive analysis straight from the minds of those who've been in the trenches.
Yeah.
Wideout's World. Let's do it.
Are you ready for some football?
We're ready for some football, baby.
All right, now that's a repeat. This is the second time around, but the second time around is always better than the first time. Yeah, what's going on, y'all? Wideout's World. Wow. Just already, wow. Irving Fryer, Fred Barnett over there. Well, that's the other way. Fred Barnett, Michael Timpson in the house. A lot of good news. Yes, Vincent Capriati's on watching right now. Good to see you, Vince. Hang on in there. We got some good stuff for you tonight. Great games last week. Got a great game coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk very little about that this week. Talk about it next week. But we're going to recap some stuff that happened this week, whether it's news, whether it's a recap of the Bills and Chiefs game, or recap of the Eagles and Commanders game, maybe some news. And we got some SB stuff going on today. We're going to pick some favorites of the year. What you laughing about, Fred? What's going on? What you feeling so good about?
I'm just taking it all in.
Taking it all in.
Taking it all in.
You look like you're feeling.
I'm just taking it all in.
You look like you're real happy, man. Are you happy?
I'm not sipping tonight. Oh, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy. I am happy.
You look like you're
I'm a
real
happy guy.
That's a good thing.
I am a happy guy.
Because you can't expect people to make you happy. You have to take happy to people. Ooh. Yeah.
Well,
that was good. That was good.
I'm expecting. Yeah, I'm expecting people to make me happy a little bit.
No, you can't expect people to make you happy. No,
yeah,
happy
I
comes
expect my wife to make me happy. She better make me happy. Or else.
We're not going there. We're not going there. And I bet you if she was in the room, you word that a little bit different, or take some of the edge off your voice.
Get over it. Come here. Watch this. Come. Oh, she ain't in the room.
He ain't talking to his wife, y'all. He's talking to the dog. He's talking to the dog. He ain't talking to his wife. She would have knocked him upside his head. What's going on, Mike? You're on the road.
Mike,
nice little picture back there. I like the way you set it up in the background. You got two lamps back there. The picture is all picturesque looking. That's pretty good, brother.
I was just trying to get the best spot in the hotel room. That's all. I was just trying to get the best spot.
That you're in a good spot, bro. It looks good.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. All right, you got some news for the people. You got a little something you want to share with the people. I know you want to talk about the coaches.
Let's talk about these new coaches very briefly. Jacksonville, Liam Cohen had a terrible news conference. The Raiders, Pete Carroll, that was a surprise to me.
Right.
Retread. I mean, obviously he has the cachet, but I'm not so sure he can relate to the new this new generation. The coaches that relate best to this new generation have been there and have an established program. Those that can relate to these new. He's just coming in. We'll see. I'm not so crazy about that. But the two that I had something really to talk about is the Cowboys and the New York Jets. Okay, so let's do the Cowboys very quickly. Schottenheimer's, who was the what was he? Was he the quarterback coach? Not the offensive coordinator.
Right.
He was a quarterback coach. Wasn't calling plays. Obviously, that was McCarthy. He becomes the head coach. So his press conference, he said something that was very interesting. He said that the Cowboys are built to win quickly. And I started scratching my head. I understand that. But okay, what should he say in that case? We all know that. Hey, we got a lot of work to do. I'm ready to get started. That's pretty generic, and that kind of takes you off the hot seat. But when you say built to win quickly, the first thing you two thought about, with what? With who? He was watching the same thing we were watching? So I'm just saying, in some cases, less is best. So we move on to Aaron Glenn.
Hey, Mike, let me make a comment about that, Mike, because when
Yeah.
he's saying, I'm thinking there's some influence coming that's prodding him to make a comment like that we're
Of
built to
course.
win quickly. I think that's coming from Jerry Jones. Why? Because
Yes.
that's a part of the reason why he's been selected as the head coach, because he's already in Jerry Jones's system and he knows how to step and fetch.
Okay.
And Jerry Jones is not going to have a problem at him. So I'm thinking that
And
comment's coming from up top, and that's Jerry
That's a
Jones.
good point.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And let me
Very,
say
very,
this as
yeah.
well. I was so, I don't want to say stupid, but I was so, just way off course in thinking that he was going to hire somebody different than who he did. And he,
Yeah.
here
The
we
people were
thinking
saying,
maybe Dion will come,
yeah, they were saying
and
Dion, yeah.
maybe Dion will come.
This way
So
not Dion.
and of course he hires somebody
Mm-hmm.
that
Step and
will,
fetch.
probably stay in their place, so he can continue to
Yeah.
be who he wants to be. So of course it was not surprising, but I to some degree I think he's literally letting the league know, letting everybody know that, hey, I'm still the man around here. Jerry Jones is still the man, and I'm going to have somebody that I can just kind of move around.
Yeah.
There it
I thought he
is.
was going to
I'm
pick
surprised he didn't
Kellen
hire
Moore.
himself.
I I thought I thought Kellen Moore was going to be the pick. So Aaron Glenn,
Yeah.
New York Jets.
Hmm.
Now now we're pulling for him because he's an ex-player. We wish him
Yeah.
well. We kind of played against him. I get all of that. He says in his press conference, and I quote, he says, "We are the freaking New York Jets." He says, "We're built for this SHI sugar honey iced tea." I'm sitting here like, okay, we're the freaking Jets. Now we know the Jets as we know the Jets. The Jets hasn't been relevant
Yeah.
for years. And
Years.
we look
Yeah.
at the Jets like
A long
we
time.
look at the Jets like, ugh.
That's a
And
win
he's like,
on the
it's
schedule.
like,
Yeah, we play the Jets for homecoming.
yeah. And he goes in, and like you said, Fred, you said, what is he supposed to say? Again, in some
Yeah.
cases, less is better. We got a lot of work to do. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Because when you say that, they're gonna play that sound sound back.
They're gonna
Hey,
throw it right back at you.
yeah, we built for this. We built for this. That's what he said. So those kind of things kind of shocked me. But I wish them both the best. But that was my interesting news from the new coaching
You know, to
hires.
to Aaron Glenn's point, it's going to be interesting to see how he navigates the relationship with
Hmm.
Aaron Rodgers. Because as we know, we felt that Rodgers had put himself in a hierarchy position where,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there were things that were happening on the field in terms of coaches being gone, GMs being gone, and we just felt like he had something to do with that. Although he's,
Yeah.
really said he didn't. It's obvious that he has something to do with that. So it'll be interesting to see, how that all unfolds,
Oh
because
yeah.
they are.
That's a point that I was going to make too, Fred. That he's got to solve that or deal with the challenge of Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers, because obviously Aaron's not going to be there the next 4 years.
No.
He may play another year, or maybe two. I doubt that, but he needs to make a decision about Aaron as to whether he's going to put up with that and maybe try to allow him to stay or deal with him staying to help, pour into the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks, drafting a quarterback, pour into the young quarterbacks in hopes of building them up for a future run of success with the Jets. But it's not going to be now. So personally, if it were me, I would talk to Aaron and ask him, listen, you need to find somewhere else to go, because you're not our future. Why? He's wasting time, in my opinion. Why waste the time? And why put up with the aggravation and the potential division that Aaron can bring to a team?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
he's a big name and he's an influencer. He can influence those
Yeah.
guys on the team.
Because if he didn't go to camp,
Absolutely
he
right.
didn't go to camp. He didn't go to camp last year. He certainly ain't gonna go to camp this year.
Right.
He's gonna be out
No.
somewhere else. Yeah.
And
And,
that's
and, and
that's
what
not good.
what's he
Not a
gonna
good
do?
look.
Yeah.
What would
All
Aaron
right.
Glenn do?
We'll see.
That'd be interesting.
Listen, I
shall
wanted to bring
see.
something up that happened that one of the coaches from the Commanders, Joe Witt, y'all know what he said last week?
Mm-hmm.
That's the defensive coordinator.
Defensive
Yeah.
coordinators in front of the press, in front of the media. The media asked him about
Yes.
Jalen Hurts and because
Oh
Jalen
my
he had
God.
gotten hurt in the Rams
Right.
game, hurt his knee. So they were asking him about Jalen Hurts, and he started, well, you know what? Well, that's on them because if Jalen Hurts runs the ball, then we're going to hit him like he's a running back. It doesn't matter. Then they're just putting him at risk. Boy, first of all,
Why say that?
I didn't see anybody hit Jalen Hurts. I saw Jalen Hurts walk into the end zone a couple times with nobody even touching him. But that's just putting fuel on a fire. You know, that was all up
Yeah.
in the locker room for Philadelphia, and they weren't going to allow any defensive player to touch Jalen Hurts. That was just dumb. That was just really,
It was.
really dumb. I can see something like that coming from one of these players, but to come from the defensive coordinator, come on, man.
Told you. Less is best.
Just
That's
just
bad.
dumb. He should have got fined. They dropped 55 points on them. 55.
55. 55.
That's the most.
2-0.
They scored the most points in an NFC championship game in the history of the league. Or actually a conference championship game in the
Conference
history of the
championship.
league. That's crazy.
Yeah, you. Well, the
All right,
Commanders
you're
got
not going to
caught
talk about
singing
them
in
now,
the
are you?
shower.
You going to talk?
No, I
You're
ain't
not
gonna
going to
talk
talk
about
about
them
them
now.
now? Okay,
No,
so
not yet.
hold that thought.
Okay, hold the thought. So we want to do our I think we brought this up last week towards the latter part of the show. We want to do kind of like an ESPY, giving out awards here. We have no awards for them. We're going to do a shout out for our winners of the year. So we're going to talk about, briefly talk about who our defensive player of the year is, and that's each one of us. Defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year, the most valuable player, and the coach of the year. All right, we got all of those going on today. Then we're going to give you a little recap, our thoughts on the AFC and the NFC championship games last week, and then we should be out of here. We should be running out of time about then. Yeah, so let's talk about our defensive player of the year. Fred, why don't you go first, my brother?
You know, defensive player of the year for me. I was a young kid out of Denver. Um, I wanted it to be somebody different, but
Mm-hmm.
I stuck with this guy, um, Patrick Surtain Jr. Well, the second. This guy is long. I mean, he didn't have any crazy numbers, but you're talking about a lockdown corner.
Mm-hmm.
He's an unbelievable talent, and he's almost freakish on the field. I mean, the guy's 6'2", he's 202 pounds, a little over 200 pounds, and this guy is. I've had a chance to watch. Well, I had a chance to watch him in the playoffs, and I had a chance to watch him a few times during the season. And he's just remarkable to me. He'd had before interceptions, and he had 34 solo tackles, but he's becoming has become that guy that quarterbacks just don't want to throw the ball, his way.
Mm-hmm.
And if he keeps it up, and he's literally he's going to be probably one of the greatest players at that position. And also too, I mean, I played actually when his dad played, a few years before his dad played. So it's great to see, a young guy come in there. And I think he's from Alabama. It's great to see a guy, come in the league and just establish himself right away. And at one point this past off season, I think Denver kind of hinted around that, he was kind of on the trade block. There was, if something sounded good, and everybody seemed to be going after him. And I think the Eagles even had talked about him a little bit too. That would be absolutely ridiculous if the Eagles would have got it. But
Right.
Patrick Surtain is my guy.
All right. We see you, Holly Golightly. Holly Golightly said
How they go lightly.
her defensive player of the year is Jalen Carter. Missing Capriati's in the house too. Mike, who's your defensive player of the year, bro?
All right. Little known name, that hails from Cincinnati, from the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson, an edge
Mm-hmm.
rusher. A lot of people don't know about him. He doesn't make a lot of noise. He doesn't get a lot of notoriety, but this guy led the league with 17 and a half sacks. And here's the thing that's interesting about him is he did it the prior year with 17 and a half sacks. I mean, back to back 17 and a half sacks per year. And in addition to that, he pretty much hung around that double digit number year after year. And this is his 8th year. So he finished with 46 tackles on the Cincinnati Bengal team that they're missing some pieces on that defensive unit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they were not at the top. But he maintained consistency with getting to the quarterback. And so my defensive MVP is Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals.
From Bengals.
The
Yep, the Bengals.
Bengals.
Yeah, and that's you know what? I tried to do something similar to what the two of you are also doing. Not choose the obvious. You know, a lot of the MVPs or the players of the year, they're going to be chosen partially because they're, you know, when the AP chooses them, they're going to be chosen partially because they're on winning teams or teams that have had success this past season. So some other guys really deserve, not that our show is a national show and everybody watches our show. We got a lot of folks to watch though, but some guys deserve a shout out. So my defensive player of the year is a guy, like you said, Fred, defensive back, mine's a safety, because I believe, first of all, we know that playing the position of quarterback in the NFL, professional football, is the hardest position to play and execute and be successful in professional football, the position of quarterback. My opinion, the second hardest position to play in professional football is defensive back. Trying to cover guys like us. I never really had problems getting open. I never had problems beating DBs. But it's hard. It's hard to try to cover guys that can run blazing speed, you know, run down the field and running routes and catching balls. It's hard to cover those guys. You see defensive backs
backwards.
And running
Doing it
backwards. Yeah.
backwards.
It's hard,
Backpedal.
and that's why you see their hands and whatnot, because it's almost impossible. And so it's to me, it's the second hardest position to play in the NFL. So this guy's a safety from Detroit. One, he played 17 games, all 17 games, with all the injuries that took place with the Detroit Lions on the defensive side of the ball. This cat was played all 17 games, which is important to me because it speaks of durability, persistence, toughness. It speaks of all of that. His name is Kirby Joseph. He led the league in interceptions. He had 9 interceptions this year, which led the league. 1 touchdown, 83 tackles, 58 solo tackles. And he's just a guy that was resilient. You saw all of what happened with Detroit. Yes, you saw how they played well offensively, and they played well most of the time defensively. But here's a cat that was able to withstand all of the negativity that went on. He was able to withstand injuries and stay tough and play all 17 games, which means a lot to me. And he led the league. And you didn't hear anything about him. Kirby Joseph, you didn't hear anything about him. Led the league in interceptions with 9. So he's my defensive player of the year, a defensive safety with the Detroit Lions.
And little known fact, he's from Orlando.
That's right. He's from Orlando. He was drafted 3rd round a couple years ago, and out of Illinois. So, good player. Detroit's got, I don't know if they'll be able to regroup and get back in the front of the pack next year or not. It's going to be tough. It's tough, man, when you play. I'm sure both of you can speak to this. For those who are watching right now, what's up, Mama? Mama's on right now. She said, "Hey, wow."
All right. Hello, Mom.
It's tough for these teams. Like when Vincent Capriati mentioned that he feels sorry for Richard Melton, who's not on right now. He feels sorry.
Come on, Richard. You can't be a front runner, Richard.
Richard's not on right now. Richard's not. He's probably mad. He's not on right now. But it's tough. I mean, imagine that. That's what made Buffalo so good years ago when they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. They lost 4 years in a row, but they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. To go or even to get to the NFC or AFC championship and lose after playing well during the season, to be able to regroup, put enough air in your tire to get back on the road and get back to that same spot again the next season, that's a feat in and of itself. That's a feat in and of itself. To you got to think about it all off season. You got to grind on it all off season. Then you got to get enough wherewithal within yourself and enough grit, enough girth to train and practice and get yourself physically and emotionally and psychologically ready to get back out there and the grind of the every week in the season and the fighting injuries and playing with hurt and pain. Man, it's a tough thing to do. Just doing it one season is tough. People don't realize how special these athletes are. I didn't mean to start preaching. But listen, Offensive Player of the Year. Mike, you go first.
Who you got, Mike?
This is a tough one for me. Okay. I'm going to go with my offensive, the writers out there. So my MVP, my offensive MVP is going to be Lamar Jackson. / Josh Allen. Can I do that or no?
No, you can't do that.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So my offensive MVP is going to be Josh Allen. We talked about him throughout the year in terms of what he brought to the team. I just think he did more with less. And for me, that said volumes in terms of the season that he had. He was known for turning the ball over. He did not do that this year. Even when you think back to the game that they had, it wasn't him spraying the ball and turning it over. And so I just believe that he played himself into the conversation, and hopefully those things that he did in the past is behind him. And so for me, he was the most valuable player to that team because he made that whole team go. For him to have so many new people at the skill positions and to get the most out of that team and put him on his back and his rushing, I never seen him run the ball like he ran the ball. And so he's my MVP for this year, my offensive MVP.
Yeah.
He was running it because he had to. Plus Lamar is still trying to prove himself, man. He's trying to prove that he's that guy. And when it gets down to it, he's taking the responsibility, like you said, of putting the team on his back. And he's going to try to make the plays with his legs, which he can. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
To my understanding, how many MVPs does Lamar have?
2.
Does he have one or two? He has two.
He has 2.
He has 2. So so inevitably he's been there, done that. And actually for the offensive MVP, he was my pick. Had a little over 4,000 yards. He threw 4 interceptions, which is crazy. And for what he does with the team, and I think adding Henry really just kind of took them up a notch because of Henry being a threat to run the ball with that RPO, that run pass option for him. Lamar, I'm hoping that he gets better. It seems that he's got to a point to where it seems that he's just kind of peaking and just kind of staying there. Of course, we all have to put the blame where the blame it belongs, and that he did, throw a 2-point conversion that was dropped, and they lost the game, and and they could have possibly won that game. So I think he's done a lot for Baltimore, and I think he's going to continue to do a lot. It's going to be interesting for me just to see if he gets any better. I know that obviously they want to continue to put weapons around him and spike up their defense as well. So it'll be interesting to me to see if he continues to get better and could possibly get another MVP down the road. But I got him as my offensive MVP.
Can he get better? What in your mind? Just thinking about this past season, not the prior seasons, just this past season. In your mind, what things do you think? I mean, like you said, he only threw 5
He only threw
interceptions.
four interceptions.
Four
Yeah.
Was it 4?
Four
Was it 4 or
interceptions.
5? 4 interceptions. He only threw 4 interceptions.
Four
My
interceptions.
gosh, all
That's
season long.
crazy.
Yeah. So
That's
what
crazy.
else? What else can he do better? I think Mike said something about putting more pieces around him. Maybe that's something that needs to be done. Trying to improve the weapons that he has that he can access, so he doesn't have to feel as though he has to put the whole team on his shoulder and the responsibilities on him. But maybe get him another big playmaker or a big playmaker
That's it.
at the wide receiver position.
That's it.
You know, they got
That's
the
it.
running back.
That's what I think. I think if you put him in a position where, as you mentioned, which is, the thought is to not put the team on his back, not to put the
Right,
offense on his back, and that he
right,
has to make the plays. He has to figure it out all the
right,
time. And
right.
if he get another couple of guys, on the outside, maybe even a receiver from free agency, or draft somebody that comes in and able to make big plays. Adding another weapon with him is definitely him getting better for sure.
For sure. Well, my
Let's
offensive
go.
player of the year, and I thank Mike
Jared
for saying
Goff.
this. You knew it wasn't going to be him. He's at the bottom of the totem pole. Looked like a flamingo in a football uniform. He looked like a flamingo in a football uniform. He's skinny.
Jared finished second in the stats.
I don't give a hoot where he finished. I don't care where he finished. He looks silly. Anyway, Joe Burrow's my guy. He's my offensive player of the year. Talking about
That's a surprise. Okay.
Well, I mean, Cincinnati, like you said, Mike, and I'm
That's a
saying
good
this
pick.
because
That's a good pick.
because he's not going to get picked as the MVP by the league. So in my opinion, he should be. Yeah, they were 9-8, not a losing season, but not a so-called winning or successful season either. But this cat, man, led the league this year, 4,009, almost 5,000 yards, 4,918 yards, 43 touchdowns, 70.6%. He's throwing the ball all the time, and he's completing 70.6% of his passes.
That's
Nine,
crazy.
I think he had 9 interceptions. Nine interceptions. He had a 108.5 or 108.5 quarterback rating during the season. They ended up third place in NFC or AFC North, I should say. And obviously, Jamar Chase was a big part of what Joe Burrow was doing. Jamar Chase, 1,700 yards and 126 catches. Mike, can you imagine that? 127 catches,
That's crazy.
17 touchdowns. That's a touchdown a game. Jamar Chase. So Joe Burrow struggled. His struggles were with, it wasn't his struggle, but the struggle with the Cincinnati Bengals is with their offensive line. They got a good enough defense, but they could not protect Joe Burrow, which makes what he was able to accomplish throwing the ball even more impressive.
Yeah.
He led the league with a subpar, led the league in passing, yards, touchdowns with a subpar offensive line. That's just ridiculous. And he played every game. He played every game. He's tough.
That's good.
He's tough, and he can't really run. So it's not like that. It's not like he can be elusive like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or guys like that who can make plays with the legs. He can move, but he can't run like them. So oftentimes he was a sitting duck back there in the pocket when his offensive line didn't hold up, and yet and still he stand there, man, and produced those kinds of numbers. So he is my offensive player of the year, in spite of the record of the team. That cat if they get some players around him, more players around him, and shore up that offensive line, oh my gosh. Just imagine what he could do with Philadelphia's offensive line.
Ooh.
Yeah.
With a line like Philadelphia Eagles, what he could do.
Jeez.
If he's firing it
That'd
like
be
that now.
crazy.
So, yeah. So, let me see. Let's go coach of the year. Let's go coach of the year first. Mike, who's your coach of the year?
Coach of the year.
Well, this one was pretty easy for me. my coach of the year took a team that, the prior year they were 4-13.
Mm-hmm.
They were 4-13, and he turned around this year. They're 12-5. So I'm going with Dan Quinn with the Washington Commanders. Little quick
Mm-hmm.
background with him: he was a DC for Seattle, Legend of Boom. He was the architect behind that. Then in 2015 to 2020, he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the interesting stat about that. His second year there, they're the ones that lost to New England after they built a 28-3 lead, and New England came back and won that. That was just his second year.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy,
Mm-hmm.
the guy can coach, and he's showing that. So then for 2 years he
Mm-hmm.
went to DC with Dallas. That didn't work out too well. And then this year he went to Washington, and they were 12-5. I mean, if you're looking at that track record of him going to Atlanta and turning them around, because they were 8-8, then he went 11-5. Washington this year was 12-5. What does next year hold? Because this guy
Yeah.
seems to have an upward trajectory. And so my
Mm-hmm.
coach of the year is Dan Quinn. Just a heck of a turnaround. And two of his
Mm-hmm.
offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator may be up as much as we talked about Witt. He played deep. They were decent defensively.
Right.
Offensively, Kingsbury. Those guys will be up if they perform like this again next year. They'll be looking for head coaching jobs. So Dan Quinn is my coach of the year.
Well,
Mike,
guess who just
go
joined
ahead.
us?
Oh, Richard Melt.
Do we need to play some morning music or something? Do we need to play
Rich.
something?
You all right,
We'll come
Rich?
back. We'll come back to him and console him a little bit.
We'll come
Circle
back
back,
to him.
Rich.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But
Yeah,
here's
Mike.
here's his comment. He said,
Glad to
"What's
see you.
up, Wow?"
What he say?
He said, "What's up, Wow?" From the jump, I'm gonna say Buffalo was the better team, and officiating always has an advantage. KC an advantage. KC in the games with my heart. He said, "I'm heartbroken over that crap." Ooh.
Mm.
Richard,
I'm
my
with
mama
you.
said, "Richard, you'll be all right."
I'm with you, Richard.
My mom said, "Richard, you'll be all right." Who's your coach of the year, Fred?
Actually, it was Dan Quinn as well. With what he's done with Washington. I mean, Washington was a scary team. Uh, and what they done with this new quarterback, this guy is easily, in my opinion, win rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. And with Cliff Kingsbury at the helm in terms of calling plays, I think is going to be very good for them. It's good from this year. It's going to be good from next year. And I think I've read an article where someone was kind of hinting around to Kingsbury possibly doing some interviews, and he declined any interviews because he wants to stay with Jaden Daniels, which I think
Nice.
is commendable. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, too, just kind of puts the pressure on the NFC East next year as well. So Dan Quinn, I mean, coming in and doing what he did, I think they had 2 losses at home, three losses away, but those losses were really tough losses. And I think the worst loss probably was I think the loss to the Cowboys, which they came back and beat them. I think in the last game of the season. But Quinn, I think they did a great job. The Commanders are going to be a team, in the near future that's definitely going to be some problems in the NFC East for sure.
I don't think the near future. I
For
think
sure.
right now. I think
Yeah.
they're from the get go. When the season
Yeah.
starts next year, they're going to be a team that has to be reckoned with. They're going to be right there. Right now, if you look at the NFC East, it's the Eagles and the Commanders, and then you
Yeah,
have
that's it.
whatever the Giants and the Cowboys. You can interchange them, but between the two of those teams, the Eagles and the Commanders, they're going to be battling each other every year for the next
sure.
probably 4 to 5 years. If Jaden Daniels can stay healthy, Jalen Hurts can stay
Yeah.
healthy, next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be battle for that NFC East between the Eagles and the Commanders. I'm going to do something a little bit different. My coach of the year is not a head coach because it doesn't say head coach of the year. It says coach of the year.
What?
That's what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be the head coach, does it?
It's never ever has been another coach.
An
But go ahead.
assistant.
First time for everything, then, right here on Wow. So y'all seeing it for the first time, the coach of the year being named right here on Wow.
But it's not like you
The
didn't
water
have,
boy.
it's not like you didn't have selections.
Yeah, but this
to
guy
choose
has done
from.
such an outstanding job coming in that I just think he deserves, in my opinion, he deserves coach of the year. When you look at where the team was, it's Vic Fangio with the Eagles.
Big fan.
Remember,
Yeah.
Vic was with Miami last year, remember? And they just, he had to leave. They couldn't get nothing done. Couldn't connect with the players. They didn't like him from what I understand. There was a big gap. There was a big divide. No, they couldn't communicate. And here he is, 1 year in Miami, he's out. Then he comes to Philadelphia. Now, mind you, there are several defensive coordinators across the league who are Vic Fangio disciples. So his type of defense and his defense schematically is being repeated on other teams across the league, just like the West Coast offense is being repeated across the league. So Vic Fangio comes to Philadelphia and he takes over as the defensive coordinator. He begins to run a defense that was the worst rated defense last year in the league. I think they were 31st. I think they were last.
Yeah.
Either last or next to last season. And this year, with rookies and new players, new signings, he takes a team defensively from last in the NFL to first. They're the best defense in the league. He's got two rookies, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. They're starting. They both played all year long. And they're a big part of why that team is number one defensively in the league. He took a guy named Zach Bond. Zach Bond is a first-team All-Pro. This is his first time ever playing the linebacker position from the off position. When he came from New Orleans, he had never played. He was a rusher. He had never played off the ball. And Vic Fangio saw something in him. I don't know what he saw. Obviously, he saw the right thing and put him back behind the lines, off the ball, and this guy becomes an All-Pro. He's all over the place. Zach Bond.
Possible MVP.
Possible defensive MVP. Exactly.
Yep.
And this is Vic Fangio's doing, y'all. Jalen Carter couldn't play half the plays last year. Jalen Carter is a beast. He is a beast. Then you got Jordan Davis, who we were considering was going to be a first-round bust. The cat is there. They impose their will on the offensive lines, and they do all of this. What's even more impressive is that they do it with just a four-man rush. They don't blitz that much. They blitz the least out of any team in the league. They do it with a four-man rush all the time. He's not a big blitzer, but man, those cats know what their assignments are. It's like a pack of wild dogs when the ball comes out from behind that line of scrimmage. They're there. Gang tackling, getting turnovers. Yep. It's just a team effort. So Vic, my hat goes off to Vic Fangio because I watched it right before my own eyes. This defense for the Eagles go from being the worst defense in the league to the best defense in the league, ranked number one.
Yep. That's
Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio.
He's my coach of the year.
Yes, sir.
Mike said, okay.
Well, they do have an assistant coach of the year, but it's our show, and so you're
it's our show. We can do what we want. Yeah. That's right. Say it again, Mike. It's our show. We can do what?
Yeah. Do whatever you want.
We can do whatever we want. Richard Melton said, okay, Dr. Fryer, Eagles will face the Chiefs next. Let's hope you're still laughing after that game. Listen, I'm going to say it right now because all of y'all, I'm going to get all of y'all right now. I'm going to get it right now. Why don't you just
hold it? Why don't you just hold it?
I'll hold it.
We're going to talk about all the game. Yeah. Okay, hold your horse.
I'm going to hold it.
All right. All right. The MVP, what do we have left? The MVP, my MVP.
The most valuable player. Yeah, we got MVP left.
Saquon Barkley.
Yes, sir.
I think we all going to agree to
Hands
that.
down.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go.
16
Okay.
games. 16 games, may I say.
16 games, yeah. But now he's on pace. I think it's 34
30,
yards
30
left.
yards. 30,
Is it
30
30 yards?
yards.
30 yards
Hmm.
to have recorded the most rushing yards in a single season and postseason ever
Yeah.
by a
He
running
has
back.
30 yards.
455 yards right now. He's averaging 227 yards in 2 games.
In postseason.
In two
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
postseason.
those are 2 games. Just
Crazy.
two
But
games.
he's going to have he's only 30 yards away from rushing for the most yards combined single season and postseason.
And postseason.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he
Terrell,
gets
Terrell Davis.
yeah, Terrell Davis did it 2 years in a row. He got
Mhm.
the two highest Terrell Davis has.
But you know what I went back and looked at when I was looking for the
Mhm.
MVP? I looked at his run in the snow. Remember, he was hitting himself upside the head.
Yeah, I didn't like
Yeah.
that.
Remember, he was running. You know why he was hitting himself upside the head? He said,
Why?
I should have got the record during the regular season. I should have been in the game. I should have been in the game.
That what he was doing?
I mean, he's running down the field. He's like, man, I could have did it. I could have did it, doggone it. Because you only get one shot in a sense.
Yeah, it's
You get
over.
One shot.
Yep,
To
that's
have
it.
that kind of year, it's
Right.
hard to repeat that, man.
That's why
Well,
they
you
should
know-
have allowed him to go for the record.
Exactly. That's why he hit himself like, man, So I just feel
Yeah.
bad for him, but it
I
is
mean,
what it is.
it's going to be. I mean, right now, obviously, they're not regretting, hopefully, or second guessing themselves for not
He is.
going for the record. Well, yeah,
Oh,
because
okay, so-
he wanted to. He wanted to go for the record, but him going for the record meant that the whole offensive starting team had to go on the
Would have had
field.
to play.
They
Yeah.
all would have had to play because he wasn't going to put Saquon out there with backups. No, you're setting them up to fail.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hey, they could have went in there and said, you know what, coach, we going for this. And he would have had him in the corner and say, I'm going to buy all y'all a truck. I'm going to buy every last one of y'all a truck. We going for this thing. They would have been all in. They would have been all in.
I'm telling you.
He and Jalen Hurts already bought everybody. What were they? Golf carts. They already
No,
bought
there
them
was one
golf
quarterback-
carts.
I was one quarterback that bought everybody trucks. His
Yeah.
offensive line. Was it Burrow? It was one of the quarterbacks or golf.
Oh,
They bought them all trucks.
Buy your
You
truck.
know?
What kind of
Yeah.
truck you want?
Golf.
Wow. Well,
I'm sure. Yeah.
we shall see. So,
We shall
Fred,
see.
why don't you give us a recap of what you saw, what you felt about the Bills, since we have Richard on the Bills
Richard.
Chiefs game.
You know what? I have to. First of all, I picked the Bills to win, and
But we know you.
I think they
did.
should. I
Because
think they
Mike's gonna
should. I
give us
think
the
they
record
should.
here in a minute.
should've
Smile,
won.
Mike. That's right. We got.
Oh, I'm still right there.
No,
But
you still
Rich,
here, probably.
I feel your pain, Rich. And isn't it interesting that every time Kansas City plays, there are questionable calls, and
Yeah.
I mean,
That is
I
so
just
true.
think it's interesting because
It's not interesting.
after
It's a
every
fact.
Kansas City game, there are questionable calls. And
Yeah.
I mean, when the Eagles played the Commanders, there were no questionable calls. You know, when in every other game I've seen this year, every other game, Kansas City, there are questionable calls, and I'm hoping that, of course, it doesn't get that way in the Super Bowl. But Kansas City won the game 32-29. Buffalo, I think, did a tremendous job in just hanging in there. Of course, Buffalo beat them during the regular season. There were two, in my opinion, questionable calls when I think on fourth down, and a first down, and then they went for it on fourth down, and just watching it live, I said, "Oh, he got the first down." And to come see the line judge just
Right.
mark the ball behind where
Right.
where he
Where it
lunged.
actually was, yeah.
Where he actually was, and neither quarterback did anything really special. I think it was just kind of a street fight. Mahomes had a 245 yards passing, he had one touchdown. They had 135 yards rushing, which was decent for them. Allen had 237 yards passing, had two touchdowns. They had 147 yards rushing, and Cook had 85 of those yards. I think without those calls, it did possibly would have been more of a game in terms of Buffalo possibly winning. So once again, it was a game that was, you leave that game and everybody's talking about the calls rather than the play, more so the calls than the play. And of course, there are guys who made some great plays. Cook made a great play for a touchdown, leaning
Yeah,
over,
stretching. Yeah.
stretching over, and so Mahomes, and Kelsey he did his thing as well. But I wish, of course, would have been different. I would have, without the calls, who knows though.
Well, I agree with everything you said, Fred. Here's the reality. Patrick Mahomes is the face of the league. We just need to.
Yeah,
Everybody needs to come to grips with that. He is going to get the calls. Period. Remember when he
yeah,
signed that contract, $500 million, and we were like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah. Whew.
I mean,
yeah,
that right there told me he is the face of the league. He's going to get the calls. And so,
yeah,
but one thing we keep in mind: Buffalo turned the ball over 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be in the championship round and turn the ball over 5 times and beat, let alone the defending champion.
Right.
anybody.
You
True.
pay the price,
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree. They were the better team, but on that day they weren't.
Hmm.
Well, and we all know it doesn't matter if you're the better team. You have to be the better team on that day. You have to make the plays on that day. You have to take care of the ball on that day. Mike, like Mike said, 5 turnovers. Who survives? I mean, I know the Lions turned the ball over 5 times during the regular season and still won the game, but normally
Rare.
that's rare. Who turns the ball over
That's rare.
5? You have 5 giveaways and win the game. That just doesn't happen. I was talking to Andre Reed, the ultimate Buffalo, today, and ultimate Bill, I should say, Buffalo Bill, and he was saying that there could have been 7 turnovers because early in the game, Josh Allen threw a couple of balls that just got dropped by the defensive back, so it could have been 7. And Andre felt as though early in the game, the Buffalo Bills came out and they were playing tight. That's also what I felt, that they weren't really playing loose, that they were uptight about the game and they were not really able to flow like they needed to flow. And before you know it, they got behind, they had some turnovers, and now they're chasing, they're chasing their tail. So it's almost like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Yeah.
Josh Allen and the Bills, they get there and they just don't do enough to win. And their Achilles heel is the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, the refs made some bad calls. Yeah, we think the ref made a bad call 2 years ago in the Super Bowl against the Eagles that gave the Kansas City Chiefs the Super Bowl. So, they're going to get plays. What you got to do is you got to put your foot on the gas and you got to make it, you got to put some space between you and them in terms of the score.
Ref.
You got to take it out of the hands of the ref and get up by 2 or 3 scores. So it's a non-contest. There's no way they can give them the game. Put it out and take it out of the hands of the refs. But I mean, it's hard to. But listen, Josh Allen, he can play, man. Josh Allen can play. That throw that he made to Mark Hollins. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mark Hollins. Right before the halftime, man, he dropped that thing in there.
Dropped it right in there.
Rainbow. That thing was pretty. Man, I wish I had a quarterback like that could throw the ball like he throws the ball. Man, if they can just get over the hump and get past.
Wait a minute, time out. You played with Dan Marino. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but he didn't throw a deep ball like that. Not like that. He could throw a deep ball, but it wasn't dropping in like that. It wasn't dropping in like that. How some quarterbacks can put that little hump on it and then drop it right in there.
Yeah.
Dan's was a little bit flatter. It wouldn't drop like that.
Yeah.
But no, Dan could throw, dog. And I only played with Dan for 2 years. But listen, they just have to, get that monkey off their back and at some point and push through. I think it gets to a certain point, or when it gets to a certain point in the game, because Kansas City is so confident because they won so many games. They won 2 championships in a row, 2 Super Bowls in a row, and they won so many games that were close. They know they can do it. They believe they can win. Now we're in a position where we're trying to take down the king of the mountain. And then it gets to a point where you may start doubting yourself because things aren't looking good or things are not happening the way you really want them to happen. So now there's doubt that creeps in, and that stymies any progress you're trying to make. So it can be not just physical for teams, but it can also be emotional, psychological, and mental for teams. And I think Lamar Jackson deals with some of that because when he gets into big games, I think he tries too hard. He tries too hard, and he doesn't allow the game to come to him so that he can respond to what's going on and use his athletic ability and make things happen like he does in a regular season game. Makes sense. Makes sense. Mike, why don't you go with the Eagles and the Commanders?
Well, that one was for me. I picked Washington, and when Washington came out, man, I mean, the first 2 times that they went for it on 4th down and made it, I was like, okay, here we go. They had the fake punt. I mean, I'm like, here we go. But 4 turnovers, just like we had just talked about. 4 turnovers, you're just not going to win the game. And before you know it, man, after Barkley went through the line the first play of the game, man, I was like, oh, man, he done got hot. The first play, he done got hot. And it's all uphill then. I was pulling for him, but Philly they were too good. It was just too good. Just got to give credit where credit is due. But I did pick Washington, but like you said, to hang out 55 points on them, they couldn't stop. They couldn't turn the valve off, and Washington had no answer. They couldn't turn it off at all. So that was it for me. So Philly's on their way to the Super Bowl.
When I look at, or when we look at the Commanders team, and don't get me wrong, I think it was a kind of a Cinderella run that they had that caused them to be in the position. It was almost like an anomaly when they went to Detroit. Everything fell in place for them, and they were able to win the game. And I just think that their luck ran out. They played at a level where they exceeded any and everybody's expectations, their own expectations, their fans' expectations. I believe the coaches' expectations, all of us. They surely exceeded our expectations, and they were playing, and they ran out of gas when they got through Detroit and got through that game. They were out of gas. It was obvious to all of us. It was obvious to a person who was watching that game between the Commanders and the Eagles that the Eagles were a superior team, and that maybe even the Commanders shouldn't have been there in the the NFC Championship. I'm almost positive that if the Detroit Lions were in that game, even if it was in Philly, which it would not have been, it would have been in Detroit, that it would have been a better game. It would have been a better game. But I think just the Cinderella story ran out because on that Commanders team, I think there's probably, out of the starters, when you look at all the starters from every level on the defense, then you look at all the starters, skill positions, linemen on the offense, there's only about maybe 5, I'll go to 4 people on that Commanders team that can start on the Eagles team. And that's it. That's it. There's only 4 or 5 that could actually take one of the starters' jobs on the Eagles team. So the talent they have is in 2 people. I mean, yes, they do have a decent, but still it's just average, maybe even below average defense. On offense, it's Scary Terry and
They need
Jaden
a back.
Daniels.
They need a back.
They need a back and another receiver. They need an offensive line, and they need some defense. Coaching was good.
Not bad.
Coaching was good.
Defense is not bad. When I mentioned last time that they got caught singing in the shower, and I think this game really shows that
wasn't
they were not.
Illustration.
No. Singing is hearing what
Mm-hmm.
somebody's saying in the shower. So you sound good in the shower, but when you get on stage, it's a different,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different atmosphere. So I do agree with you, Irvin. I just don't think that they were the team who should have been in the NFC championship game. And when they, of course, went down to Detroit and did what they did, I felt that that was what the Eagles were going to do when they if they had to go to Detroit. And of course, they go down and beat Detroit and shock them. And Irv, your favorite player, didn't play well at all.
Mm-mm.
Golf. And of course, they have to come to Philly. When I looked at the Eagles and the Commanders game, the only thing that was out of place for me was the Eagles scoring 55 points. Because 23, that's what the Commanders do. And besides the turnovers, I thought that they would probably score 20 plus points, and
Mm-hmm.
they did. But other than that, it was just the Eagles just really pouring it on and causing turnovers and, getting points after turnovers and just really just kind of, just inevitably putting them in their place. And it got to a point to where the game was, there were 7 minutes left in the game, and the Eagles starters weren't even in the game. So I mean, who would have thought that they would be taking their starters out with 7 minutes left?
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where they
The
put the
backups were
young kid,
scoring.
the running back in, and
Mm-hmm.
here's the deal. Now
Shipley.
it becomes very offensive for a defensive coordinator or a defensive coach when you're up big, right, and you're throwing the ball. You know what? You don't supposed to throw the ball. So what do? You have to run the ball. And it got to a point to where they weren't even stopping to run.
Right.
It's five
Yeah, I was
minutes.
gonna
It
say they
was it's
scored on
five.
the ground. Shipley scored running the ball.
It's
Yeah.
5 minutes left in the game, and they literally just let him run through the line, and they just and then finally somebody's like, well, somebody need to catch him,
No,
and
they was on vacation. They was on vacation at that point.
they went
They
caught
was
him. But
already checked
it
out.
was yeah, it was pretty I think embarrassing because I mean there are a lot of I think Commanders fans that really thought that they were going to the Super Bowl. I didn't think that they were going to beat the Eagles, but I did not know the Eagles was going to beat the brakes off them like that, though, for
Beat the
sure.
brakes off. The
The
Commanders weren't going to the
brakes.
Super Bowl, man. Get it. Keep
No.
no. Come on now. Keep it real.
Well, I jumped on the bandwagon. I ain't ashamed. I jumped on the bandwagon.
Bandwagon.
I
What
was gonna ride.
Mm.
I was gonna ride it out. Yes, sir.
you got our
Mm.
win loss records, Mike, before we jump off
Yes, sir.
of here?
Yes, sir. All right. So after last week, um, I'm proudly bringing up the rear. I ain't scared of it. That's right. I
Probably.
went. I went. I went with both underdogs last week, and doggone it, they stayed underdogs.
Wow.
So I'm 37-26. I'm above 500. That's all that matters. Praise the Lord. Okay, Irv,
Hallelujah.
you at 40-23, and in first place is Fred at 42 wins and 21 losses throughout the year.
So we can't catch him.
No, we can't catch him, and he
Can't
knows
catch
too.
him. I can only
He
get I
knows.
can only catch him by get one, but we're gonna vote for the same or pick the same team this week. I don't know. Fred might pick Kansas City. You might pick Kansas City next week. Fred said
Nah.
no.
Well, that's a
Say
good
No,
yeah.
sir.
segue. You gonna save your pick for next week?
Yeah, we
Okay.
say pick
I'm
for
gonna
next
save a
week.
pick for next
Yeah,
week.
we'll-
A real quick note about the game. This is Super Bowl 57, right?
59.
I'm sorry, you're right. Super Bowl 59.
Mm-hmm.
Add up 26 and 33. That's 59, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
Right? Okay.
No. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
all right. Hey, you said no?
No.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
eight.
So we got so 26 is Saquon Barkley, 33 is Cooper DeJean, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So on Super Bowl Sunday, those two numbers,
Mm-hmm.
59, those guys' birthday is on Super Bowl Sunday.
Really? Wow.
Ram shana
What you speaking in tongues, man? You speaking in tongues? He's speaking in tongues.
Hey,
He's clairvoyant. He's clairvoyant. He done prophesied and spoke in tongues. But we can shut it down now. We can shut it down.
I'm missing the correlation. What's the correlation? Did I miss something? Maybe
both of these guys.
All the
Mike, could you
stars
explain?
are going to align on Super Bowl Sunday because number 33 and number 26 on the Eagles team are when that adds up to 59 are 59 and it's both their birthdays on that day.
On that day.
That's crazy. Can you imagine playing the Super Bowl on your birthday?
Dude, on your birthday?
I'm messing around and kill myself out there. I'll be out there trying to kill somebody. I'm just trying to hurt myself out there running. Out there running around. Boy, I'll be so hype. I'm messing around and hurt. I'll be knocked out in the kickoff.
You win a Super Bowl on your birthday.
What?
That's crazy.
That's a pretty interesting
man.
Thing. Yeah.
That is crazy. You sure it's their birthday? I never heard that.
They have to put an IV in me.
You sure it's their birthday?
We're going to fact check.
I read it. Hold on a second.
We're going to fact check you, man. We're going to fact check you. We're going to fact check you. Yeah, you checked it?
You're right here with fake news, Fred. You can't be having fake news on the show.
Well, somebody gave it to me.
Oh Lord, you
can't.
You got to check it if somebody gave it to you. You got to check it.
I ain't even check it. I'm gonna run with this.
No, you can't. You can't do that, man. You should have checked it. Oh look,
it's real.
I have not heard anything like that as of yet. And I listen to sports radio. I watch all the stuff. I ain't heard.
Come on, Fred.
I bet you it ain't right, Mike. I bet you it ain't true, Mike. Fred done put us out there. Oh
God, I hope it ain't.
All right,
February 9th.
So
Hope my sister Hope said yes, it is correct about the birthdays.
Saquon Barkley, February 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister Hope says yes, it is correct about the birthdays. Thank you, Hope.
All right.
That's my Hope is my fact checker.
Well,
thanks, Hope.
Ooh, my mama said Fred has lost it and he isn't even drinking his punch. Body Blu-rays.
His punch.
Yeah, I'm
okay. Richard Melton says I was torn with my Super Bowl pick, but now I'm sure I want the Eagles to lose because of fans like Irving, just like a Cowboys fan.
Richard,
just because you're a sore loser, Richard. I'm sorry, brother. Come on, man. You get over it. It'll be all right. So because you lost, now you don't want me to win. That's bad. That's kind of selfish, man. That's like vindictive. You being vindictive right now.
Okay.
Come on, Rich.
You done shut us down.
All right.
To say. Okay.
No, that was his last. He was the last one. So shout out to everybody. Richard Melton, Mom, Hope Wiley, my sister. I am Black Mal is in the house. If Philly had JD %, what is that? Jordan Davis %? I'm not sure what he's saying there. Holly Go Likely, always good to see you, Holly. And Vincent Capriati is in the house. I hope still. Holly, Vincent. All right, that's it. All right. We're about to get out of here. Listen, we'll be back next week.
With our picks. With our
we'll be back next week with our picks. And I'm sure something's going to happen between now and then.
Oh, yes.
Somebody's going to say something. Yes. Somebody's going to do something. We'll be able to we'll have some news for you pertaining what happened between today and next Wednesday. Check us out next week on White House World. Wow. In the house. I'm Irving Fryer. That's Fred Barnett over there. Over there. And that's Mike Timpson down in the basement. We'll see y'all next week. Peace and hair grease.
Yes, sir.
This has been Whiteout's World. Not one, not two, but 3 NFL legends. Fred Barnett, Irving Fryer, and Michael Timpson. Are you freaking kidding me? If it's football talk you're looking for, I think we've got you covered. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on YouTube at Wideouts World. See you next time.
Let's go! Let's go! Go!